So very quickly, guys, touching on some brief points before we really jump into it. Guys, this deck is extremely powerful. It's a spam deck. Puts a lot of monsters on the field to interrupt your opponent, whether that be by banishing or just cutting off the graveyard, cutting off monster effects, as you'll see in a second. I have to mention a few things like, well, let's face it, Small World inside of this deck is really insane for the new card that is coming out inside of Power of the Elements. Additionally, guys, some things like Zeroa Flame isn't necessarily the best card to start with, but I definitely wanted to put it inside of my deck just to show a little bit of what it can do. Gigabyte is a really powerful card, and all the cards like it, Ran Ryu and the AIRFAIR and all the spellcaster spam specific cards are cards that you may have to consider. You also have to consider cards like Dimensional Shifter, as well as DD Crow and Talents, and many more things. If you're going to play DD Crow, it specifically can help you to quick trigger some of the Exosisters while they're on the field to go directly in a zoo style effect into an Exceed in your extra deck and pop off that way. So DD Crow may be better than Shifter in this specific scenario, but that's totally up to you, and it definitely will depend on your opponent putting something in the graveyard, like let's say a hand trap in general. With that being said, let's get into it. So boom, jumping straight into the deck list, guys. Exosisters Magnifica is a card that already exists. It's probably in a platinum style, whatever the hell they call this new rarity. The Starlights, I guess, they collector's rare, whatever the hell you want to call them. This card is really good. It's very powerful, and it's a pretty dope looking Starlight to have. But this card, Exosister Magnifica, that exists right now while these cards come out in Power of the Elements, and that is Litania as well as Malfa, and Malfa is absolutely insane. We'll get to that in a specific second. But Magnifica is insane because it has double quick effects. One is this card can make a second attack during each battle phase, and then the quick effect says you can detach one material from this card and banish a card your opponent controls. A lot of the Exosisters have that effect. Additionally, it has another quick effect, which you usually want to have happen simultaneously, which says when your opponent activates a card or effect as a quick effect, you can return one XYZ monster you own attached to this card and then re-summon it in a zoo style effect, so whatever the hell is up under it. That will make a lot more sense when I get into a combo, but just understand that any of these you can jump directly into. So this card will be a material under, you'll activate that other quick effect and then summon them right back and trigger their effects, whatever that specific effect might be, and we'll get there in a second. As far as the profile, guys, again, Dimensional Shifter and DD Crow, that's definitely a thing you're going to have to genuinely think about. If you play DD Crow, it can help cards like Malfa and really any of the Exosisters be able to quick exceed, because anytime a card is moved out of the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon from your extra deck an Exosister XYZ, meaning you basically get to go into a Zodiac style of form of play, so to speak. But Dimensional Shifter is so damn powerful that, you know, it just is what it is with that, and you may just want to skip people's turns, because if you're any kind of player for any type of rogue decks, Dimensional Shifter is entirely too good and is a huge bridge. Speaking of bridge, if you want to play Small World, Veiler, Dimension Shifter, Malfa is a real thing. Anyways, getting back into the point, Malfa is a new card coming out in Power of the Elements, as well as the trap card Litania, as we already talked about. Malfa literally summons Elise. So if we going to talk about the names, Irene, Sophia are tied together. Sophia and Irene are tied together in both ways. Stella and Elise are tied together. Elise and Stella are tied together. So if you had this one, this interacts with this one, blah blah blah. And then Malfa is the new one that ties to this one, and then it ties to this one, and this ties to this one, and this ties to this one, and you guys get where I'm coming from. Anyways, and getting back to the point, all of these cards are very good. Exosister Packs is usually a card that you're just going to get the blank name that you may or may not have, or you just want to get an additional trap card set up, and much more to talk about, guys, like Temple of the Kings being able to set up a powerful card like Exosister Vadis. And a lot of these cards additionally have stuff on them like search, spells, or traps, so that's how you get this card to your hand. And a card like Temple of Kings can help you play a powerful card like Vadis immediately, which has pay 800 and then choose one Exosister monster, blah 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 blah, smack them in the face, spam a lot of monsters, interrupt your opponent. Very, very powerful deck. Very, very quick. If you want to play the Zoroa stuff, it has a huge choke point in my opinion, which I don't really like, because, well, if you want to special summon a spellcaster, I just don't know about that card really, guys. You can basically have a little bit of a Ghost Plus inside of your hand, and then Trismegistus can help you get some of these cards out of your hands, which may be a better card to play instead of this, but that is totally up to you. As far as anything else, guys, it's additionally different play styles. If you wanted to play a slower grind version with Solemns and Lord of Heavenly Prison, I wouldn't recommend it, but it is a possibility. Instant Fusion, Mud Dragons, they're all level 4s, and you can literally help set up stuff where you can't be targeted. But you can just do that with this card, which is another card that says Exosister stuff can't be targeted. It's pretty good. It's pretty decent. I definitely would highly recommend, and I've seen this in the OCG Double or Nothing in the Utopia package, and it's taking people's head off. I mean, if you have the ability to take your opponent out very quickly like that, I mean, it is what it is, and maybe something you want to consider as well if you want to get your opponent out of there. But most of the time, you're just going to be able to boost with an open field to kill your opponent, because they boost and give Exosisters monster style boost on their attack points, and just smack your opponent in the face. We've already went over those names. The combo specifically, Stella, Sophia, Irene. I'm just showing how you don't really have to have specifically everything perfect in your hand. During your main phase though, during the main phase, you can special summon one Exosister monster from your hand. Doesn't really matter what the hell is in your hand. That's all I'm trying to get to. But if you have that other card in your hand, you get to gain life points. So that may be a cheese ball and time thing if it ever comes up. In this one, you're special summoning the Sophia. Sophia has an effect that if you control another Exosister monster, regardless, she's going to get to draw a card. And if it is Irene, that's who she corresponds to, you get to gain 800. So really, really quickly, you could pop off like that and gain life points and cheeseball your opponent if that's how you open up. Just something to take note of, because, well, let's face it, that's actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Exosister Caspatel is the rank 4 that says cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster special summoned from the graveyard, and you can only use each effect of the following effects of Caspatel once per turn. If this card is XYZ summoned using an Exosister monster as material, neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard for the rest of the turn. Can't summon from the graveyard for the rest of the turn. Very similar to Sanafon, the Blue Eyes card that Black Kaiba made so very, very popular. But additionally, it has an effect which all of them do, and this one says that you get to add an Exosister monster, which is really, really important, because in this specific scenario, you're going to turn that effect on where they can't summon from the graveyard. But in this scenario, adding an Exosister monster, the new card, Malfa, really, really important. If you don't open Smart World, this is the other way to open it, and you can quickly get into Malfa. Malfa can special summon if you control no monsters, or all monsters you control are XYZ summon monsters. So additionally, you get to summon out Elise. That's who she corresponds to. Then from there, obviously, if you had Stella and all that other stuff, you'd basically have something popping off there. But for this specific scenario, you're just going straight into Macalise. Macalise is another rank 4 that already exists, and it says it cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster special summoned from the graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Exosister Macalise once per turn. If you control this card that was XYZ summoned this turn by using the Exosister monster as material, quick effect, you can target a card your opponent controls or in their graveyard and banish it. Really, really powerful against decks like Eldritch, the Splight stuff, the Terralement stuff, etc., etc. But additionally, it gets to search. The spells are traps. So again, this one searches monsters. This one searches traps. And if you're playing a card like Temple of the Kings, and this is your opening turn, you get to search either Vladis or Latanya. I wouldn't necessarily search this. If I had Temple of the Kings, I'd search the Vladis, the other trap card. But this card is just an additional interrupt or an additional XYZ summon, and just so much more, especially if you're going into something like Magnifica, which you always want to put in defense so you never get cracked by a lightning storm, because it's 28-28. There's no point in putting it in attack mode. And this card, again, has double quick effects that say you can detach one from and banish one, or you can return and then quick exceed with something that you have under it. So you have to be careful what you detach and what you want to summon out from under it, because it is like a Zodiac style effect. And again, putting these cards back onto the field immediately would do stuff like boom, and boom. Specifically, if this card is XYZ summoned using an Exosister monster as material, neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard. You see how you can do that on your turn and then do it again on their turn? Very, very key to note, because ending on that, popping off on your opponent, detaching and then reattaching either this or this, and then special summoning back out on the field one of these cards as the additional material while being able to banish it, man, that's dumb to me. That's really, really dumb to me. As far as specifically opening up Malfa as well as packs, being able to summon immediately out the Elise every time, just make sure you remember that those two correspond. Going into a Mech Elise to again search for a spell or trap, usually wanting to open up this card. I just feel like this card is so insane because multiple banishes, target to banish, having this to banish, getting to exceed to banish. Like that's what this deck is doing, spamming and banishing and controlling what your opponent is trying to do anyway. Getting through most of the combo, it doesn't really matter what you detach most of the time, but some of the cards specifically on the spells and traps also correspond to what's in your graveyard. But ending on multiple exceeds, Exosister Asophiel additionally says neither player can activate cards or effects in the graveyard this turn. A little bit different than the other cards, because either one, they're getting cut off, or two, you can't summon from them. Really, really powerful. One's Dweller. It's just all around, it's an Abyss Dweller in and of itself. Really, really dumb as well. Additionally, Malfa, Stella, same kind of combo, guys. You're always opening up the same Elise, overlaying into Caspitel this time to search another name, and then Irene and Stella or any other names, and you just want to keep spamming out Exosisters. Don't get confused with the names. Most of the time they can just spam out. It doesn't really matter. But again, having this on your side of the field, being able to have a double effect to banish, another additional trap card to banish, an additional card to re-exceed over that can dweller your opponent in some style of fashion, where it says neither player can special summon monsters from the grave. It's all really, really dumb. It gets repetitive, but it is something that you have to understand is basically you're looping the same thing over and over again. Last but not least, just showing a bit of what the deck can do in the same style of fashion. You just want to repeatedly set up this way. Repeatedly set up over and over and over again. This card, Exosister Armament, very, very powerful quick play, and it says pay 800, then target one Exosister monster you control and special summon one Exosister XYZ monster from your extra deck with a different name to the cards you control by using that target as material. So you get to summon an additional time with this card, and it is very, very key to note that, because, well, it could interrupt your opponent with basically anything that was inside of the deck in the first place, because remember, they all have different style of effects to interrupt your opponent. If you don't want to play Terralements, if you don't want to play Splight, this is probably the deck for you. Very, very controlling, and if you picked it up already because you were smart, everybody was talking trash on it, and now it's slowly getting good, look at you. You're ahead of the game, king or queen. We'll see you next time, guys. Pegasus signing out. Arrivederci.